Today, Muslims are divided on the basis of religious grounds, which has fueled the resurgence of conflicts, not only in Middle East, but other parts of the Muslim world as well. In the recent decades, starting from early 80s, we saw Iran-Iraq war was fought for 8 years on religious divide, which left thousands dead and huge damage to infrastructure. As per independent media sources, during this 8-year war, by April 1988, total casualties were estimated at between 150,000 to 340,000 Iraqis and 450,000 to 730,000 Iranians. This 8-year war impacted both nations for many years to come. Moving ahead, in 2003, we saw how the US, along with other Western nations, invaded Iraq and toppled the government of Saddam Hussein. And after the change of regime, there was a civil war on the basis of religious divide. And in a time frame of 10 years, more than 1 million people had died. Similarly, after 9/11, US-NATO alliance raided Afghanistan and left after 20 years, causing deaths of thousands of civilians and loss of billions of dollars. But that does not stop here. In the last 20 years, either it's Arab Spring or some other war, regime changes happened in Muslim world, including Libya, Egypt, Tunisia, and Yemen, with millions of deaths and complete structure collapse. Some Muslim nations, either Lebanon, Syria, or Pakistan, also remained parts of different wars and insurgencies. And even today, security and economic conditions are poor, and living in these countries is difficult. According to a recent research, the number of Muslims who died in the conflicts and wars in the last 25 years has reached 12.5 million. This amounts to the losses happened in world wars. These wars, conflicts, and divisions left Muslim nations desperate and struggling for their basic needs of life. In real terms, the Muslim world has not really seen progress in its true sense. Only wars, illiteracy, and poverty are the trademarks of most of the nations. On the other hand, if we look at the other parts of the world, either Europe, China, India, or Singapore, we find out that all the nations have rapidly changed their economic outlook and made rapid progress in science, economy, and human welfare. In the recent Muslim history in subcontinent, we can consider Allama Muhammad Iqbal as the last thinker, whereas in Muslim history, Ibn Khaldun, a 14th century Tunisian Arab thinker, is regarded as the last thinker we created. Today, it looks like that the Muslim world is back to dogmatic age. In the last 50 years, the Muslim world remained suppressed, ignored the teachings of Islam, whereas Western powers adopted the policy of divide and rule, also known as the divide and conquer strategy. British colonialism first adopted this policy in Indian subcontinent, divided us on religions and ethnicities, and allowed London to keep their firm control on Indian Muslims. Not only in India, the British adopted the same policy after the fall of Ottoman Empire. First divided the empire into pieces and then created different ethnicities. This divide still exists among us after 100 years. In the last century, we remained occupied with wars and conflicts. Modern education in science and technology was never our priority. The Muslim nations blessed with resources of oil spent their wealth for their personal satisfaction. Society's growth was never the priority. Today's conflict in the Middle East, starting from Gaza, is our failure. We, as Ummah, have failed Palestine and the people of Palestine. In the last 10 months, Palestinians were slaughtered and innocent children were killed, but we kept mum. Our silence is our society's overall failure. No one stands with moral values of Islam. Most of the rulers in Islamic world either support a Zionist state Israel or are just afraid of them. West divided us and conquered us. We need to grow, otherwise West and powers of the evil will keep conquering us.